You could not relate to other campuses like University of Natal Black Section or University of Natal. So, and the only political student body was NUSAS, but we were not allowed to be part of NUSAS. So if you had to be part of NUSAS, you had to be outside of the campus. So, so we had no student body that spoke politically on our needs. And so we began to form sporting clubs and then forced our way to play sport on other campuses, like going to Ingoya to Zululand, going to University of Natal, Black Section, and on the pretext of playing sport. So, and it was through that medium we were able to then mix. But we formed a group, and I don't know whether you read about us on campus. We were a handful of about 10 of us who formed a group called the Cafe Clan. And the clan was this political grouping of students who used theater and drama as a means to conscientize. And that is where we started this conscientizing. And we used to do skits on the whole on our own situation of the divisions in race. And we had all the idiosyncrasies of what it is to be colored or so-called colored, or Indian, and particularly the Indian accent was a big thing in those days. We satirized every situation. And then that was in 1966. By 1967, we revolted against raising of the flag. We even made an effigy of the foot, burnt the flag. We did some weird things which were very political. And then we came under the eye of these authorities and the special branch. And after a party one day, the group, particularly the guys, the males, were then arrested and then they were expelled from university. But we as girls were safe. We still don't understand how we got away with it. But I suppose because we were not in that party of guys, the authorities used as an excuse to expel them. And it was at that 1968 meeting when the Black students broke away from NUSAS. And it was the starting and the beginning of the South African Students' Organization, when we said Black students have to go it on their own, because we're tired of being spoken about, spoken for, spoken around, but nothing was being done to actually change the status quo of oppression in this country, because it was a very liberal approach to participation in so-called integration, and we were not prepared for that. And hence, the time had come where, that phrase that was coined, "Black man, you're on your own," started to appear. Yeah. So, the very fact that we were unable to read or even engage in discussion or argue points, even in a history class. The fact that our lecturers were ill-qualified. They had most probably just come out of the Afrikaans universities with just a degree, but they were lecturing to us. And they did not bring in sufficient books or literature for comparative studies. In drama, we were still doing Shakespeare and Marlowe, and I can't believe that we had to speak the Queen's English, and we had to articulate in a particular way. So the actual thinking behind dramatic art was not in community. It was not experiential. You made sure there was no way You could bring in, we never read any African writers, for instance. We didn't know of African writers if we hadn't read ourselves. Well, I think it was also ignorance on their part, which we capitalized on. Because if you look at, again, going back to our way of life, orality and oral telling of stories around fires from the workers who came from a hard day's work, toiling in the fields, to mothers singing lullabies to their babies and kept home fires burning. And the stories that they would come and tell the little children. We used that approach. The songs that we sang on the roads when you, or in the fields, those songs were political songs, which may not have been understood because it may have been a so-called foreign tongue to others who colonized us. But it was the only form of liberation. It was and what we drew and how we saw things and how whether it was through religion, and most of the songs, if you look at it from a theological perspective, you'll find that everything went around singing to the gods, praying for our freedom. And that was a method that was used to bring communities together. And that is where communalism was the form where we shared our meals, and that is where Black consciousness had started. And the Eurocentric approaches to the arts did not speak to our existential experiences. So, and therefore we had to write, and therefore we wrote our own plays and started to think about why we're not going to do arts for the sake of arts for art's sake. And the language we spoke, the manner in which we spoke, the way we present ourselves, we couldn't be presenting ourselves in clothes that didn't suit us. I was very young when I started to teach. I was only 20, and those kids were 17, 18. So I could feel what they were feeling. And I did a lot of plays. We used to started newsletters, disseminating of information at high school level, lunchtime programs, poetry readings, weekend going out. I used to take them out into art workshops outside the community instead of being in their community as well. And then we wrote the play. We took Animal Farm, George Orwell's on him, and converted it into a play. And it was one of the beginnings of being aware where the cops then started to say, or the special branch began to say, I was teaching them communism. I only taught for 3 years and lost my job at the end of 1972. But it was at that time that Steve also lost his job. And he knew the kind of work that I was doing. And both of us, when he said to me, don't lose hope, he's going to Black community programs. And he said, you will not be without a job. And he together with Ben Cooper interviewed me for the job as a research assistant. But it didn't last long because by March, the first lot of banning orders came. And Steve was then taken away to Eastern Cape, to King Williamstown. Berkeley, who was our workerist, went off banned to Johannesburg. And I had in Nkulu to Garankuwa. And then the SASO 8. And then later on, 6 months later, then I was arrested on 21st March. So at that stage, there was nobody to really go out. The people were scared. They were worried. the banning orders came as a major threat to their own safety and their security. And the fear started to permeate communities. And I went out on the shuffle day to speak to at the University of Natal Medical School. And I was followed by the special branch. And I saw them sitting in front, and I was the first speaker, and I said, welcome to everybody, but a special welcome to the special branch. And within seconds, the students leapt onto them, beat them up. And by that evening, there was chaos, mayhem ruled. We were like, by the time I got home, the cops were waiting and I was arrested. I was 4 months pregnant then. But no, I spent 2 horrendous days without food, no water, moved from one police station, threatened to make sure that I abort in the police car. But I still worked until my son was born. And then a week later, they came with the banning order and house arrest. Thank God for my son. He was my inspiration, really. I could sing to him all the freedom songs. And I suppose that's why he's so politically aware and conscious now. Yeah. So I was under a banning order and house arrest, which meant house arrest meant you being confined to your home, to a particular address, from 6 to 6 in the morning to 6 to 6 in the evening. On weekends, from say every day from 6 o'clock in the evening to 6 o'clock in the morning, and weekends from Saturday 2 o'clock in the afternoon to Monday morning 6 o'clock. You had to confined to your home on public holidays. You're not allowed to leave the magisterial district of Durban, not allowed to go onto educational institutions, not to contribute to any writing for political or other reasons, not to be able to go to enter anywhere where publications are being done. I was banned from being at Black community programs. No social gatherings. A social gathering, you couldn't be with more than 2 people. With one other meant it was a crowd. The only person in terms of the house arrest that you could have with you are your parents and my parents-in-law, and a doctor or a lawyer. I told you that we had to report every Monday to a police station. You could not enter onto any educational institutions or get involved in sporting activities. Again, maybe my principles of saying, I philosophized over the fact that no walls will a prison make. And no matter how, and even in prison, I'll give you an example. We felt that no matter where you were, you will conscientize. So it was ingrained, it was natural that you will, even to the cops, when they're driving, I would talk to them and say, ask them if they know how much they were earning. Do you know what do the white cops earn? We try and make them understand their own position. I was pushed into a cell where of women, and they said to me, by the time you come out of there, those women will tear you to bits. Just like if they took me and left me in Umlazi, the only thing that they would find were bones when they came back. And here they said, when we put you with these women, they're going to tear you to bits. I used, when I got in there, they knew, they could see that I was pregnant, and they said, oh, so you were raped. That was the first thing that they came up with. And I said, no, that's not true. Then why are you here? They were like rough. But then I sat down and then I started to explain and use that situation. And then when they came back to pick me up and they saw that I was still just sitting there and chatting, they thought that that was a dangerous situation and they took me out again. So I think that, that was our, no matter where we were, whether we were standing in a street corner, we would talk loudly about a situation. We didn't, and we would make sure people heard or got people's responses. So our conscientization was everywhere, any platform, any street corner. And that was a process of changing the minds of people about how they think about themselves and of what was happening around them. Yeah. So talking about what happened in terms of how communities, of course, it instilled fear. The banning orders and the house arrest instilled fear in our communities, and our friends and our families who were too scared to even speak to you because they thought they would get arrested. It impacted on the minds of people. Fear became so deeply entrenched in those years. And that was the effect of the banning orders. But it also helped to mobilize those who resisted, like the students of 76, who resisted any form of repression.